Hello everyone and welcome. Thanks for joining me. I want to share a short practice today, not so much talking. I am running my workshop, The Story of the Pelvic Floor, tomorrow. And so my headspace is in preparation of that. Looking back over my notes and fine-tuning a few things here and there, and as that is my topic of exploration right now, I thought, why not share a short practice and away from that workshop. Not wanting to say that the pelvic floor, can't be also exercised and strengthened, but there is a lot of conditioning and focus on that already. And often the problem actually isn't a weak pelvic floor, it's actually a tight pelvic floor, because tight is just tight. Tight is not strong. So I feel more drawn towards guiding a practice to maybe release it, as the antidote to all of the pulling up and tightening, to create a little bit of balance there. So let's, like I said, I don't really want to speak so much. Let's just get on the mat, feel it a little bit. I talk about this in regular classes a lot, and encourage a release of the pelvic floor, obviously also in these workshops, and just really observing how difficult many of my students find it to even access the pelvic floor in the first place and to actually let go and to release. It's become so habitually tight. So this practice is really intended as a short exploration, a little bit of a play. Make sure that you feel comfortable with all of it if you want to practice along. Take breaks, take a moment, switch off the video, come back to it tomorrow, have another go if you want. And just create some space for however you might end up feeling about this in this exploration, if you do want to join. So I've got a cushion here, quite a firm, sturdy cushion. You could also take a couple of softer ones, I guess. We'll come to our undoing pose, lying down, but placing this cushion under our lower back to begin with. So I literally sort of wedge this up right against my sit bones, and then I lie back over it. So the cushion ends up in the lumbar curve here, but has also levered my sit bones just off the floor. So my sit bones are not on the ground, they're kind of floating here. And then you can shuffle about a little bit, making sure that really feels fine for you, that the cushion is in the right place. And if in any way that feels too intense for your lower back or otherwise, then you can also join in without the cushion there. And this is just an invitation. I've got my feet relatively close in towards me so that I can release the pelvis away from me and let the pelvis rest towards the feet. And yes, the lower back might kind of need a little bit of time to adjust to this kind of being in this slightly exaggerated curve here. But maybe that is all it needs, a little bit of time to settle here. And let's have a look at where the arms might want to rest. So floating the arms up towards the ceiling, releasing the shoulders here, dropping them, and they might want to come out to the sides, or they might even come over the head or down to the side of the body. You can choose here. So if the arms are over the head behind you, there is obviously a little bit more of an opening across the front of the chest and the shoulders here. Check in that you feel comfortable with that. And if that doesn't feel good for you, like I said, out to the sides or down by the side of the body is also a really good option. Choose what your body is asking for here. And you might like to close your eyes, or you might want to keep them open with a soft gaze towards the ceiling. And we take a few moments here undoing, so really not doing much at all. Maybe not doing anything at all, which in itself might actually feel quite challenging for some of us. So if at any point you really feel like the need to move or wiggle or take a deeper breath or stretch, go ahead and do that. That's all good. So anything that's arising here in terms of spontaneous responses in the body, give them some space, allow them to happen. And we slowly bring our attention to the breath here, observing the breath as it comes in and goes out. And with the power of our imagination, let's imagine that we could breathe in and send the breath down and along the spine, all the way to the tailbone, like breathing into the pelvic bowl, filling the pelvic bowl with our breath. And as we exhale, we imagine that we could let the breath wander up again along the spine, all the way up, and then out through the skull and the crown of the head. So like the head is part of the spine here. And here it's a bit like we're letting the breath escape quietly out through the crown of the head. Inhaling, sending the breath down along the spine, receiving the breath in the pelvic floor. And exhale, releasing that. And letting the breath travel up again along the spine and out, escape out through the crown of the head. So let's breathe like that for a few more rounds. Trying to really stay with the breathing. Almost like zooming in. Like there's just the breath and the spine that it travels along, down and up and down and up every time. Nothing else really exists right now. Maybe you noticed how you've ever so slightly deepened your breathing. That's absolutely fine. But notice if you're beginning to strain your breathing, like putting too much effort into it is becoming hard work, then take a step back from it. There's no need to breathe that strongly. And then with this breathing still going on, take a little moment also to check in with the rest of the body again. So zooming out again, bringing more of the body back into your awareness and noticing the quality of rest, how you're resting over the cushion here, how the lower back is doing with this position now. Does it feel any different? The weightedness of your pelvis. Maybe there is even a different sensation across the front of the chest here, especially if you had your arms over your head. Notice how things might feel a little differently after only 5 minutes of lying here and breathing. And so very gently, if you find this was actually really helpful and a nice way of releasing for you, then this could be just your 10-minute mini practice So feel free to do this for longer. But for today, we'll lift the pelvis very gently up and take the cushion out from underneath, letting the pelvis come and rest back down on the mat here. Just place the cushion out of the way for a moment. And we can bring the arms down to the side of the body as well. Taking a moment here, noticing the difference in lying back on the mat now and the arms down by the side. And then let's send the knees up and away from us, up and away from the face. So this direction I'm pointing, so if you're not sure what up and away means, if you translate that, have a little look at the camera. So I'm sending my knees up and away from me, away from my face, towards the toes. And then check what is happening here in your pelvis and the lower back. Now, I don't normally say, this is what needs to happen in your body, but purely mechanically speaking, there is actually something that should be happening here. So I am going to point it out, but it might be that your pelvis does the exact opposite or doesn't want to do any of it. So don't worry about it. We'll sort of try and get there. As you send the knees up and away from you, purely mechanically, if no tension and habitual holding patterns are in the way, your lower back should be dropping into the ground. In fact, I feel actually quite a bit of pressure here into my lumbar spine. My belly is dropping back and hollowing out, and the groins here, front of the hips, are hollowing out. And the pelvis has tilted a little bit. So I feel a bit more pressure going down through the feet, but my sacrum is very light. There's no pressure on my sacrum. So my pelvis has begun to tilt towards me. And so let's go in and out of that a couple of times, slowly, very, very slowly and gently pulsating that, sending the knees away and letting the lower spine drop. Now, it could be, like I said, that your pelvis is not doing this. And so what you could do instead is actually do it from the pelvis. So tilt the pelvis towards your face and draw the lower back into the ground. And as you do that, notice how actually automatically the pressure increases on your feet. And you might then notice, actually, yes, there is a response in my legs. They travel away from me. So you might be able to get the link of this mechanic starting from the other end. That's no problem. And then once you've worked that out, then see if you can switch it so that it comes from the knees, and then it becomes really gentle and soft and effortless, and there's no contraction or engagement required here. So all you're doing is sending the knees away from you, and you're dropping the lower back down into the ground. And what it reminds me of is like lying in a hammock. Sort of the whole, I'm just so round through my back here, and I'm hanging down from my knees. And there's a tiny little bit of effort happening through the legs, but it's very quiet. And this is a lovely way of releasing the deep spinal muscles here in the lumbar area. Maybe I can invite a little bit more softness into the groins and undo the holding in the pelvic floor. So you could also go into it and hold it for a little bit. Or keep coming back out of it again, letting the sacrum settle on the ground. So let's all come out of it slowly and take a moment, take a couple of breaths here to notice, integrate. Good. So we'll do a little breathing here. One hand on the abdomen and one hand on the ribs, and you choose which hand goes where, whatever is more comfortable for you. And so what we're going to do is inhale and actively try and expand into the abdomen. Exhale, contracting the abdominal muscles and drawing that back down towards the spine. At this moment, we're going to hold the breath out for a short moment, not as much time as it takes for me to talk you through it, so don't just join in yet, so listen first. So exhale, contraction. At the bottom of the exhalation, we hold the breath out, send our knees away, just as we practiced a moment ago, so the lower back drops even more into the ground, and then we try and release the contraction in the abdominal muscles still while we're holding the breath out. And then we take the pelvis back down, or the sacrum back down to the floor, and go for another round. So I'm going to talk it through a bit faster this time. Inhale, expanding into the abdomen. Exhale, contract the abdominals, draw the belly back. Hold your breath out, send your knees away, tilting the pelvis. Release the contraction. Place your sacrum back down. Inhale, expand the belly again. Exhale, contract, draw back. Hold your breath out, send your knees away, release the abdominal effort. Release. Inhale again. Exhale, draw back. Hold your breath out, send your knees away, release the effort. Relax the sacrum back down. Inhale again, expand into the abdomen. Exhale, draw back. Send your knees away as you hold the breath. Release the contraction. Take the pelvis back down. Inhale, let's do one more round. Exhale, draw back. Hold the breath, send the knees away. Release the effort. And release the sacrum back down. Continue to breathe normally. And release the hands away. Take a little break here. And simply notice, checking in, how does that feel? Oh, good. Let's invite the knees into the chest and cross the ankles over. And have one hand on each knee. And then we can gently begin to rock or maybe circle the legs as whatever feels best for you here. Bringing a bit of movement into the body, rocking and rolling, massaging the back here. Letting your legs just simply flop out as wide as they want to. The knees can come wide. You've got that support from the feet that are crossing over. And you hang back from there. And maybe with that, you can release the buttocks, then the lower back, the pelvic floor, as you're just enjoying the rocking. And then from here, roll onto your comfortable side, whichever side that might be. Make sure you are comfortable enough on your side so you can take 2 or 3 breaths here, allowing the fluids to settle, allowing the body some time to adjust. And then we can use the top hand in front and send the top leg away, slowly calming up. And let's come into a cross-legged position. I'm just turning it sideways so you can see what's going to happen in my back here, but obviously you can still face the camera. Oh, not the camera, the screen. So arrive here and have a little wiggle with the pelvis. And maybe even a little shimmy with the shoulders. A couple of deeper breaths. So we let go of all of the habitual holding ourselves tall and strong and upright and all that, but instead shaking that off. Literally, shake it off. Good. And then let's allow ourselves to roll back over the sit bones. And make the spine, the back round in response to that. So that will happen automatically as you allow yourself to roll back over the sit bones. So I've got really round back here. I'm a bit lazy, in fact. And then I'm shifting from my hips, the whole round shape forwards a little bit until I can come and rest through to my fingertips in front of me. I've got my elbows bent, so my arms are resting on my legs, and I'm staying really round through my back here. Resting, really looking for a way to feel supported here. So I get a sense of my shoulders resting through my arms to my fingertips, resting. And from the waist down, the lower body resting away into the sit bones and into the feet. And we're not looking for a stretch here at all. So this might be a good place for you to really feel that support. And maybe some of you wanted to take it down onto flat hands to rest here. Some of you might want to take it onto your forearms and rest here. But there's no reaching and stretching forward. So I've got my forearms really close towards me. And I'm staying round through my back to find still the restful quality here. Giving the weight of my shoulders into the forearms or my hands or fingertips. And the weight of the lower body away into the sit bones, into the legs. Let's imagine we could let the legs fall away from us a little bit. So with the release of the breath, it's almost like letting the legs drop a little bit more. And notice for yourself where you might need to let go of some of the holding. It could be deep inside the hip sockets. It could be more around the lower back or around the glute area where you're holding and pulling up a little bit. So just checking in for yourself. Where is it that you could possibly invite a little bit more softening, a little bit more ease to let the legs drop away from you. Use slightly deeper breaths to support you here, but really notice how you are fully supported by the ground in this position. You can't go anywhere, you can't fall over. You're really grounded and supported here, really steady. You're in full contact with the ground. And as we're inviting all of the softening to let the legs fall away from us, maybe also check the inner thigh muscles. They can release a little bit more. Keep working with the release of the exhale. And then maybe in this position, it will feel safe enough to also relax the pelvic floor muscles. Resting through your structure, through your support. We're going to come up to sitting vertically again in a moment. But see if you can. So here is the mission. Let's try and come up without recontracting any of those muscles where we just invited a little bit more ease. So we're going to use our hands instead. You're going to use your hands and slowly begin to push your torso back up through space and then eventually right back over your sit bones. So your mission is not to pull up through your abdominals or your pelvic floor or your back, but use your hands to walk yourself back all the way back into your verticality. Your hands will walk back onto your legs here until you're sitting way back over your sit bones again. And then take a moment here and simply notice what that feels like. What do you notice in your uprightness, in the way you're holding yourself, in the way that you might feel your base on the floor? Great. So quite often when I do this in a class or a workshop, quite often people really feel like they're sitting very differently and feel like their base is a lot more kind of grounded and steady and rooted on the ground, with a lot more ease in the hips and the lower back. That may or may not be the case for you. I'm going to have to second guess here as I can't get your feedback. Let's do one more little exploration and let's try cat pose. So this is really the idea of today is just to give a little bit of an idea of what that might feel like to work with releasing the pelvic floor. So come onto all fours and find your cat position here. And in fact, let's go through a couple of rounds of flexion and extension through the torso. You can do that with the breath, without the breath, as you wish. But really checking in with what the movement itself feels like here in your back, in your spine, in your shoulders, in your pelvis. Is the movement at ease, or is it jarring anywhere? Is there any conflict? How big is the movement? What does it feel like? It's like you want to take a little snapshot of it. And then from here, see if you can find a neutral position. And a neutral position where checking in with the shoulders here to begin with, where you're not kind of pushing, you're not into superhero, you're not collapsing either, not too heavy. But you're really looking again for this restful quality. We could spend a whole half hour just sorting that out, but just a little reminder. And then maybe with a little wiggle of your pelvis, get a sense of the pelvis resting down to the knees and actually also to the feet effectively. And see if you can really give the pelvis, so below the waist, down to the knees. And what I try and do here sometimes is actually with one hand, I just take that off, ease a little bit the inner thigh muscles by literally just wiggling them a little bit, and even the tops of the thighs. So I give my brain a little bit of a message of, okay, like thighs, inner thigh muscles, all of that. Can I soften that? You could do some patting. So the touch sensation actually helps, and massaging it also helps. So let's see if we can really soften the inner thigh muscles here to begin with. And that's kind of in a way I like sort of gateway in. But at the same time, from the other side, you could think about easing a little bit across the back of the pelvis. And I tend to do that by swaying my pelvis from side to side ever so slightly. And then I might be able to invite the pelvic floor muscles to relax, maybe just a little bit. And I remind myself here that I'm on all fours. I'm resting through my structure, through my thigh bones. They are strong here, through my arms. I can't fall over. I'm really steady. Trying to relax the pelvic floor. And then let's try and do a bit of flexion and extension, a cat and cow once more. Mission here is to not contract the pelvic floor whilst you're doing it. So can you come into a round spine without pulling up on the pelvic floor? My tip here is make it more about a spinal movement, more structure rather than muscles. Round through your spine, that's what you're trying to do, nothing else. And then coming into an extension. And my other tip would be that you probably need to slow down a little bit here. It's a little bit more delicate. It's like really trying to take care that you don't recontract those pelvic floor muscles, if you can at all avoid it. So you have to move really slowly and delicately here, so it doesn't happen accidentally into full extension. So try that a couple more rounds into a full flexion and a full extension. Now, maybe that looks different in my body if you're just watching. Maybe it's too subtle to see on the video. I don't know. It feels very different though. So the rounding feels at ease and effortless, and actually also a little bit bigger than before. And the extension feels, on the extension I find the whole thing a little bit easier. And this is just me, reflecting on what it feels like for me. But before I released the pelvic floor, there was a real kind of pinching and unease in my lower back for some reason. I don't know where that was coming from, but that's something I noticed, and that's just not there now. And the extension is bigger. I'm really extending through the full spine. Great. So take a little rest here, maybe come into child pose if you want for a moment, or sit back. I always invite to come back into kneeling for a moment after some of these practices. It's, I think, a really great position for a check-in, as that creates less conflict on our back, kneeling, and it's a really nice way to therefore get a sense of how everything is doing. So I can actually just feel my coccyx release a little bit in response. It's responding to this work, which actually led to a nice natural lumbar curve to come back into my lower back here, which I think was a little bit compromised, which is why I was pinching earlier. So that was a very nice little unexpected sweet little adjustment that just happened there. Notice what might be going on for you here, and you might feel something more in your upper back or in the way that you holding your head above your spine. I don't know. As always, I love your comments and your questions and your feedback, your observations, but especially questions. And yeah, if any of you are catching this still today, and you feel this could be fun to explore a little bit more, then come along tomorrow, 2:30 to 5:30. That's London, Lisbon time. It's online. There'll be a recording of it as well, which you will have lifelong access to, a handout and some bonus materials and yeah, maybe I'll see you there, or maybe not. If not, then have a wonderful weekend, everyone. I may or may not be quite so present here. I shall see, as I am now off to Casa Limoeiro for 2 weeks to run a level 1 and level 2 Thai massage training. Yay! So excited to get out of the city for a couple of weeks and share this beautiful practice. My favorite thing ever, teaching and sharing that. But yeah, I might jump online from there and show you beautiful nature we're in and make you a little bit jealous. Anyway, enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much for joining. All the best, and take care of yourselves.